Hi everyone, welcome to Infinite Being TV. My name is Suma. This program is about exploring next steps of evolution for human body, mind, and consciousness. I'm really excited to introduce our guest today, Paul Selig. Paul is a psychic medium and award-winning author of channel text. He's able to tune into guides and teachers from higher dimensions. He receives clairaudient dictations from unseen intellect called the guides. I want to thank you, Paul, for this great work.
Oh, well, thank you for having me here.
Tell us about yourself and how all this began for you.
Well, I don't really know how it began for me. I didn't expect to be a channel, and I never considered myself a psychic, although I had experiences when I was a kid that were very psychic, but it's not how I self-identified. When I was about 25 years old, I had a list of things that I had to achieve in the world that I thought would make me okay. And I got the whole list and I wasn't okay. And out of sheer necessity, I began to look for something more. And I found myself on a spiritual path. And I had an experience shortly thereafter of energy moving through my body. And around that time, or as a result of that, I really can't be sure, I started seeing little lights around people. And I studied a form of energy healing so I could get a context for what I was beginning to experience. And I found that when I had my hands on people, I could hear things for them. Mm-hmm. And because the information that I was hearing was being validated by the people I was working with, I began to trust the voice or the thought or whatever it was in those days that was coming to assist. And gradually over the years, the dictation improved. And I would say when I was in my late 40s, I realized that I had begun taking large portions of dictation when I was sitting with a group. I used to hear phrases and bits of information for individuals, and suddenly I had started downloading paragraphs and 20-minute lectures. And as that began to happen, I began to record them, which I had never done, and transcribe them. And that became the genesis for the work that I do now as a channel. During most of this period, I was a college teacher. I taught at NYU for over 25 years, and I ran a graduate program at Goddard College in Vermont. So my work with the paranormal or the spiritual was being done fairly quietly, and I wasn't looking to be known for it, certainly, because I had another life. But this is what's happened in my guides since, I want to say 97, so over the last 10 years or so. I'm sorry, what year is it now? 2007. 2007, the last 10 years, 2007, 2009, have been dictating books. So there are 5 books in print. I think the first one, it's called I Am the Word. And they said that was the beginning of a trilogy. And it was. And now there's a second trilogy that's well underway. The second book of the trilogy, the Book of Truth, will be out in June. And all of these books were dictated. So they're verbal dictations that are then transcribed, and then the unedited transcripts are the books. So I'm not sitting there writing anything. I'm sitting there with my eyes closed and listening and repeating what I hear, which is how I work, at least as a channel.
And it's been 10 years now since you have been...
I'm trying to remember when the first book was done. I want to say I Am the Word, 2009, I think, is when that was being dictated. So it's not a long period of time, maybe 8 years that the books have been coming through, and they're now 4 in print and a 5th on the way. So it's been coming very rapidly. But I had to work through a lot of resistance in order to be able to show up for this. When the guides first said we have a book to write, which is why, how it happened, I didn't quite believe it, but I showed up for it anyway. And the first book was dictated over the course of 2.5 weeks, in blocks of an hour and a half, 2 hours at the most, of channeling with somebody on a telephone in Berkeley, California, listening as I had, the recorder going, and then I would type up the transcripts originally. Now, fortunately, somebody else gets to do that, and I don't even have to do that much. I just show up and listen.
What was your resistance at the beginning? I can see it even in your books while I'm listening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of different levels of it. I mean, some of it is who am I to be doing this? You know, I don't feel particularly evolved, and I don't claim to be a spiritual teacher, and I have no interest whatsoever in being a guru. I say that I'm the guy that sits in the chair, and I do. I'm participatory to the work at a level I feel like I'm a collaborator. I think they're using me, they're using my vocabulary, they're working through me clearly, and I'm able to interrogate the teachings, which I do, because if I don't quite get it or if I don't quite trust it, I'm going to say something. Then the guides really have to address my concern. And most of those end up in the text, because as I'm taking the dictation, I may be going, hey, wait a minute. So that's some of the resistance. And I think, you know, this wasn't what I had planned for myself. I was somebody, first of all, I was raised something of an atheist. And I didn't necessarily believe in channeling or give it any real merit. I'm not a very good New Ager. I never was. This is this phenomena that happens. And when it happens, and this is part of the reason I do it, it's accompanied by an energy that's extraordinarily palpable for people. So when I do groups, you know, the guides come through with all this vibration or frequency or whatever you want to call it. And other things happen too. My eyes will often change color when I'm channeling. They'll run a very, very, you know, pale blue. I've never seen it, but the reports are consistent. So there are all these interesting things that come with it that I find enormously amazing and experiential. When I was first beginning to do the work, because I had studied energy healing, I was more interested in the energy that would come through than the information. So I was always dismissive of the information because it was coming through me, and the energy was like, I don't know what the heck this is, but this feels amazing. And I think one of the adjustments that I had to make was to give credence to the text, to the information that was coming through, you know, as it did. But I was initially more intrigued by the phenomena of the energy that would fill the room, you know, and that we could all feel, everybody assembled would feel it. If the guides would say, everybody feel a hand on your forehead, and we all went whomp, and our heads were pushed back, we were all kind of in amazement that this was happening. And, you know, the funny thing is, I think in retrospect, I was being prepared for the work that I do in many ways, including my work as an academic. I think was in preparation for this. You know, but this is certainly not what I thought I would be doing in the last quarter of my life. I think it's a delightful surprise in some ways, but it's not anything that I sort of, you know, had pinned down as a goal for myself.